I'm Nicola Spurling, welcome back to my channel. Last week I put together a video that was all about how I came out, and there was one piece of that I ended up leaving out, and it's because I thought it was worthy of a second video. That is how I was outed on a national level, and it wasn't really a coming out story because it wasn't something that I had anticipated happening, but it did mean that I had to have announced to the world that I'm trans, and there were a number of side effects that came out of that, I guess, for lack of a better word. Some of them were positive, some of them were negative, and so I'm just going to go through the process of how that happened and what resulted from that happening. So this takes us back to 2017, when I ran for the BC Green Party in the provincial election, and I was one of 4 transgender candidates. There was one for the NDP, one for the BC Liberals, and 2 for the BC Green Party. And between the 2 of us that were running for the BC Green Party, I had decided that I didn't want to run as an out transgender candidate, and my hope was that it would be something that wouldn't be a discussion during the election. I didn't want to make that the focus of my election campaign. I wanted to focus on other issues. I mean, obviously I'm still an LGBTQ2+ advocate, and issues related to that are extremely important to me, but I didn't want that to be what the public perceived me to be all about. The other person that was running made a decision to be an out trans candidate, also with the intention of focusing on the issues, but just had different ways of going about that. And so when Global News approached the 3 parties looking for trans candidates, the 2 of our names ended up being brought up by our party because they weren't sure who Global was trying to contact. They in no way gave consent to use our names in this story, but were looking to put us in touch with Global. And unfortunately, what ended up happening was Global never did get in touch with us. So they ran a story about the 4 transgender candidates that were running, used our names because they've been given to them by the party, and that's something that the party regrets doing. But at the end of the day, what Global News should have done is contact all of the trans candidates and make sure that they were okay with having their personal information published. Outing a person can be an extremely dangerous process. If you are outed to someone that doesn't agree with being trans, that has extreme intolerance, it can put your life in danger, and that was something that I was aware of. Now, going into politics, I knew that there was a chance I was going to be outed. I knew that there was a risk involved, and I was prepared to take that risk. But it shouldn't be the case that if you're going to run, you have to worry about having your sexual orientation or your gender identity revealed publicly. That should be done on your own terms. And that's the case with any aspect of life. You should be able to reveal that information about yourself when the time is right for you, not when someone else decides it's right. And so what I'd done in anticipation of potentially being outed was put together my own post that would be for social media or for a media release, whatever it might be, that explained what the dangers of outing a trans person were. And I was expecting it might be an individual, maybe a partisan person or someone that just didn't like me, whatever it might be, who revealed that information. It didn't occur to me that it might be an actual media outlet, and so I wasn't prepared for the scale of being outed. What ended up happening too was I was outed at a provincial level initially. I decided to put out my post about the dangers of outing a trans person, and that ended up being picked up by Huffington Post Canada as well as a number of other media outlets, and it was spread across Canada. I even started getting messages from people in the UK, in the US, who were fortunately very supportive, although if you look at the comments on any article about trans people, they're not going to be necessarily supportive. So there was definitely some blowback that I had to deal with. I ended up complaining to Global News about this, and fortunately they've updated their policy, so now if they're going to put out information about someone's sexual orientation or gender identity that's not already public, they are going to check with that person first and make sure that it's okay for that information to be released. And so that's a positive change that came from all of this. Some of the negative changes are that once the election was over, obviously I was running for the Green Party. We don't have a lot of support here in the province yet, so I knew I wasn't going to win the election, and I still had to live my life when it was over. But unfortunately, I ended up being laid off from my job shortly after the election, and in some ways that was related to me being trans, although indirectly, so I couldn't really do anything about it. So then I had to start looking for a new job. And when you're trans, looking for a job can be tricky. I have the privilege of passing in a lot of scenarios. And what passing means is that people can look at you and not realize that you're trans. And I managed to get through a lot of my life with people not realizing that I'm trans. And that's a huge privilege that I have. But when I was outed, I didn't have that ability so much, especially when I was going into job interviews. And the reason for that is people tend to search you. They look up your LinkedIn profile, they Google your name when they're trying to decide whether to hire you. The first thing that shows up when you Google my name, or at least for quite a long time after the provincial election, was this Huffington Post Canada article about a trans candidate who was running for the BC Green Party. So now I've got a disadvantage on two counts, because people, one, realize that I'm trans, and two, realize that I support the Green Party. None of these are things that I'm hiding anymore, but they do make it difficult to get a job. So I ended up deciding to go out on my own and run my own construction company, a company that I have been running since 2011, so I was fortunate enough I didn't have to start a company. I just had to sort of ramp up the work for it and go out and try to find those jobs. And fortunately, because of being outed, I had a much larger following than when I had entered politics. And so a lot of the work that I received was from posting on social media and saying, I've just been laid off from my job, I'm looking for some work, I am running my construction company and looking for jobs, is anyone interested? And I had a lot of people reach out to me, and I ended up being booked solidly for a year, which was great. I don't work for myself as much anymore. I'm working for another company for a variety of different reasons, and they've been very good about the fact that I'm trans, but that's definitely one aspect that was negative. The other aspect was having to deal with a lot of questions. People who don't know what it means to be trans, they look for someone who's a public figure and they reach out to them and they ask for information. And so a lot of what I spent my time doing was answering questions about what it means to be trans, having to go into very personal details about my own transition, and I held back on some, so I tried to only share the things that I was comfortable with. But these questions can be very invasive, and they were coming from a broad array of people, like I said, across Canada, because I was outed nationally, and that was something that was tough to deal with. The positive aspect of having this kind of recognition, especially with having spoken with the media and being viewed as quite articulate when speaking with the media, was I was offered a position with CBC as a political pundit on their early edition show, which airs every Monday morning, 88.1 FM, 690 AM in the Lower Mainland, if you're interested in tuning in, and it's 7:40 almost every Monday. We have an NDP representative, a Liberal Party representative, and a Green Party representative. I'm obviously the Green Party representative, but that came about because the Green Party realized that I was able to convey a message accurately, that I was a supporter of the party, obviously having run for them, and that I was somewhat articulate when speaking publicly. And so they put my name forward. CBC seemed to think that that was a good idea, and so I'm fortunate enough to still be doing that nearly 2 years later. And that's been a huge positive in my life. That's opened the doors. It's made a lot of different connections within the community. It's really sparked some of my advocacy work. I feel that my voice is taken much more seriously now. And that's the unfortunate thing, is as an advocate, until you somehow make a name for yourself, you're not taken very seriously. And so it's really about trying to get your profile up to the point where people take you seriously and you can start affecting change. And it's really unfortunate, because I was advocating long before I got outed, but I just didn't have the platform that I have now, and so I'm really appreciative of that. But also I feel that it's really important that we look at advocates who are doing this grassroots work, on the ground advocacy work, that people aren't paying enough attention to, and we lift them up. And that's part of what I try to do at the moment, is listen to other LGBTQ2+ advocates and try to figure out how I can amplify their voice, or figure out how we can work together to accomplish a goal. And I can use some of the platform that I've gained, not that it's a massive platform, but it is somewhat of a platform, to try to do some advocacy work. And lately that's been working on banning conversion therapy, listening to survivors who've been through what is a very torturous practice, amplifying their voices, working with them. Some of them already have established platforms, and they've been working with the different political parties to try to push that forwards. Unfortunately, as of a few days ago, we've discovered that the NDP have killed the bill to ban conversion therapy, which is extremely unfortunate. There were a lot of delays despite the Green Party's efforts to try to work with different parties, and we're just going to have to keep pushing for it for next year. But it's a big disappointment that we're seeing yet another delay in trying to end this abuse of LGBTQ2+ people. But the main focus today was just to try to explain how I ended up being outed on a national level. It's a question I get asked a lot, and I hope that I've answered it satisfactorily. If there's still information that you're wondering about, please comment down below. I'm happy to answer your questions. I go through all of the comments and respond to them individually, so if there's anything that you want to give me in terms of feedback or in terms of questions, please leave those comments down below. And if you're looking for more content like this, you want to stay up to date with it, make sure you subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. And I look forward to having more of these kinds of conversations with you in the future. These are videos I really like making, and I'm always looking for new topics. So if you have ideas for other videos that you'd like to see, also leave those in the comments down below. And until next time, have a great day.